Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Q&A. Good morning,
Hello.
Karen.
How are you, Amy?
Good. How are you? So nice to see your face.
Likewise. Sorry,
I'm just
trying
gonna
to open it up. Better?
Okay. How's your morning going so far? You don't look as rugged up as me, so you must be somewhere warmer than 5 degrees.
Yes. Yes. Canberra is known for its warmth. I mean, it was cold this morning. It was 13 degrees. I'm actually in Federal, which is behind Byron Bay.
Oh,
So
right.
Nice, even though it's colder.
Yeah, a little bit warmer, which is nice. What a great spot to be spending some downtime, Karen.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Jeff and I, we've had this place for like 18 months.
Yeah.
And when everything was locking down to start with, I was really worried I wouldn't be able to get here. Jeff was here, but the day I came up here was the day I was supposed to go to London. So It was for Bridal Market. So it was kind of good.
Yeah, not a bad trade-off for Bridal Market for now anyway. Spending some time with lots of open space and trees, and how nice.
No, it is gorgeous. And you actually can't hear them at the moment, but normally it's really windy today. But the birds are absolutely beautiful. There's like a background of bird song all the time, which is fabulous.
How nice. And I can imagine quite nice to wake up in the morning to that as well.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, we're all very envious of where you are today.
Yeah, sorry to start rocking.
Yeah. I'm very happy to be in our store today we're really missing this place at the moment. So it's nice to be here and to have a chat with you this morning. So thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate
thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. We appreciate you giving up some time this morning. We've been inundated, Karen, with lots of love for you and your designs and your team, and we have a very long list of questions. So, feeling up to it. Shall we get started?
Yes, please.
Okay. So first and foremost, we all really want to know how you and your team are doing at the moment amidst the crisis situation and isolation we're experiencing.
I think we're doing really well, actually. We've been very proactive with trying to sort things out. Obviously, there's been lots of ups and downs and a lot of trauma at the same time, as with everyone else, and just trying to deal with it. But we're sort of like, we seem to be in a nice rhythm now, and kind of obviously Zoom meetings, we seem to have got those down pat, and just trying to make the most of it as well and be as positive as possible. So yes, it was definitely, there's been many tears between us all for different reasons and different times, but again, that's nothing that everyone else isn't going through.
That's correct. And I think remaining positive for everyone, and really I guess our roles at the moment are quite supportive in a way, and just keeping the brides' journeys alive and inspiring them with beautiful designs and imagery.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we've sort of like, we're more storytelling at the moment as two. And just sort of want to sort of have something interesting to show people, and just kind of keep the interest there and having a look probably from a different angle. So that's one of the big things that we've tried to make sure that we're working on, and invite people into our Karen Willis Holmes family.
Yeah, which is so supportive and nurturing at the moment, which is what we all need, I think, regardless of whether you're a bride or not, actually. So, Karen, you're celebrating your 20th year at Karen Willis Holmes Bridal. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Time flies.
Yeah. So I guess one big question we have for you, how many gowns do you think you've actually designed and created over that period? Has anyone ever asked you that question before?
Possibly, but not. I actually really have not got a clue. It would definitely be in the thousands.
Yeah, wow.
very easily. Quite a few thousands actually. So, but I've never counted. I should.
Yeah. And I guess as a designer, you're constantly experimenting. So there may even be designs that, you know, we've never seen before and things like that as well. You've made.
Very much so. There'll be, I mean, sometimes, when I'm starting designing, I'll be drawing or collecting pictures of things that I like and that inspire me. And then I'll kind of go through and work out and sort of like sort things out. And then I'll end up with a pile of full skirts or whatever is taking my fancy at that time. But then when we start making, then obviously then I'll sketch them up a little bit more. And then they'll go through, okay, we'll make a sample of this one. And then sometimes it takes 6 or 7 goes and it's just not right. And it's just like, we just keep looking at it. We make a new sample. We think we just tweak this, tweak that. Then we have a look at it again, go, no, it's not right.
Wow.
It's sort of, there's a big selection process before we have our collection. Obviously we want to not make too many pieces that we don't like, but by the time they're in the store or that we're taking to market, we love them. So there's definitely, we're doing our own natural selection as we go along, whether it gets past the sketch page, whether it gets past the Calico 12 stage, whether it goes into sampling. And of course it's the opposite. Sometimes we design something, a quick sketch, then make the 12, yeah, awesome. Or we just go into it and it's like, oh, we nailed it. Oh, aren't we clever? And then another time it's like, why we can't do this? Why we just can't get that right? So, and everything in between. So.
Yeah, there's always a few, isn't there, in every collection?
Oh, yeah.
You just like, why isn't this working? And then you just do one thing and it's perfect. But it took you like 6 or 7 goes. It's quite interesting, I guess, for people to hear about that kind of process you go through for design, which is one of our questions as well. Thinking about going back to your time in the business, Karen, what do you think has been the biggest change for Bridal over that time?
I think it's definitely the last, probably 4 or 5 years, been a much more relaxed kind of feel, a destination style wedding, less formal. Even if you're having a formal wedding, it still feels a little bit more handcrafted and personal rather than mass produced. Again, sort of like a simpler gown, but still even if it's sort of a beaded gown, there's an awful lot of work in it, but it's like a simpler silhouette than a sort of like a more traditional look is probably how I'm sort of like gauging that.
Okay, so more of like an understated elegance really that's coming through.
Yes, which is very Australian look. And that's, I know when we show overseas, that I remember someone sort of like one of the buyers speaking to me a few years ago, and she's like, and because we show with One Fine Day, which is an Australian company as well, and they've got bridal markets for brides as well as working on a commercial level. But one of the buyers, and there was a lot of Australian designers showing in New York, and this girl she's like, what is it with you Aussies? Like, we've just got a particular look overseas.
Yes.
So even though you don't realise it here, but it is that very kind of essentially relaxed but still beautiful kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you don't actually realise until you immerse yourself overseas in a different market where you can actually reflect back and go, actually, we do have that kind of understated, relaxed vibe happening. And that's how we've always been. And I think that's what a lot of our brides really love, that, you know, we support Australian designers here, and, you know, the general kind of go-to style is that relaxed kind of vibe, and that's what they get from all of your gowns. Yeah. Awesome. So a question for you. I don't know if you've put much thought into this one, Karen, at all, but what would you change if you started afresh? So if you kind of wound back those 20 years and started all over again?
I actually don't think I'd really do it any different. I'm probably a trial and error kind of person with literally everything I do. So I like to try something. Does it work? It doesn't work. And sort of experiment is probably the biggest way I think about it. So I've got ideas in my head with a design of a gown, with a way I want to run the business, with social media, with anything. And then it's lovely. I like to test it. And it's like, yeah, that's got to pick up. People like it or they don't, or I think it's brilliant, but no one else does. It's kind of like, okay, well, fine. So that's probably how I do everything. So it could only by default be the same. Obviously, there's mistakes I've made over the years, and it would be nice to know all of those from the beginning.
Yeah.
But you don't, and that's part of the joy of the journey as well. So, I mean, I think probably know you're going, but you don't, but know you're going to have a bigger business and get a lot of things in place. Like at the moment, we're trying to make the most of some of this time and sort out, basically we're having a spring clean of a lot of our files and kind of like how we're running systems and things. So if I'd have set that up to be the size we are now at the beginning, it would have been much easier, but you don't. So no, nothing really is the answer.
Well, I think it's all part of the story. And like you said, you know, the best way to go into anything is that with that trial and error. And if you don't give it a go, then you'll never know. So, and I think you do things exactly the same, to your point.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of design, Karen, what inspires your designs the most, do you think?
That's always a hard question because I actually don't know the answer. As long as I think it's beautiful, it's probably the bottom line. So it has to appeal to me. So when I'm designing, I think when I'm in designing mode, I'm opening myself up to the world is how I see it. So I just let things in, and I'm very, I kind of feel it, but by watching and looking. And that's the best way for me to explain it. So, even though it doesn't really. So and then when I'm looking, it's kind of like, well, then what's appealing? What does keep getting my attention? What have I heard someone say? I'm naturally the person at the back of the room watching everyone else is my position in the world. And I love being out, like I'll go into a new city and I just like watching people walking around on the streets or what they're doing in cafes or what people are eating, what's on the TV. So it's absorbing the world and then something pops out of my head at the other end.
Yeah, great. I love that process. And I also really love observing too, and people watching is the best. You know,
oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
Completely different cities, sitting in a cafe, drinking a coffee, and just watching the world go by. Yeah. So yes, I guess your design kind of process is led by beauty in the everyday, and you know, everything you see.
Very, very much. Yeah, it has to. I don't understand clothing and obviously bridal's an ultimate time that you want to look beautiful, but I don't understand fashion that's not attractive. So it's got to appeal, it's got to be flattering, it's got to make you feel special. So it's anything from a beautiful point of view.
Yeah, wow. I love that. Okay. It's very inspiring in itself. Now, a big question from us, which we've been wanting to ask you for a really long time, and I don't know why we haven't actually, but we obviously have your beautiful LUXE collection, which is your hand embellished gowns here at Mrs. Fray, and we're burning to know how long it takes to hand bead one single gown, because they're so intricate and detailed.
It varies a lot. Sure. And I actually only realised recently how the teams know how to bead it. They actually weigh the beads, so that they know how many beads are actually. So then you've got 2 or 3 kilos of beads. That's the number that goes on that dress. But then of course if it's just like we've got like the Anya, that's kind of like scattered beads all over. So obviously that's quicker to do than one that's got like an actual
pattern,
design and a pattern in there. But really anywhere between sort of 15 and 50 hours is how long they take to do, because they're hand beaded. And it's the skill is fabulous. I mean, obviously I'm used to seeing them now, but the first couple of years when we would get these gowns are made in India, so we just don't have the skill set in Australia to make these. But when we first looked at the gowns and we were looking at the inside and we were looking at how exquisitely they were made, we would all in the workroom, we'd all be looking, obviously we're dressed, so the inside of us intrigues us as much as the outside.
You've got to pull it apart and know.
Oh, it's fabulous. Yeah, so it's they're handcrafted pieces of art, and they're all slightly unique, which is part of what I love about it as well. It doesn't, I mean, yes, they're made in a factory, but they're not mass produced.
Yeah,
it's more like a workroom.
Well, and one person would down, I would imagine too, Karen. So they're kind of, that's their gown that they're working on, and
yes.
And the Indian, I mean, it's been in there kind of for hundreds of years. They've specialised in those kind of very detailed crafts. So it's really, it must be amazing to see them work and kind of unpack the process with them. They're incredible.
Yes.
So I have to ask, is Margaretta the one that takes about 50 hours, do you think? Because she's pretty incredible.
Yeah, she does. And also she is, because also she's got, I mean, sequins are different to beads, and the little bugle beads, and also with the weight point of view as well. So Margaretta has got a lot of the little bugle beads and a lot of seed beads on her, as well as some of the sequins. So yes, and just all the kind of like the rivers of like how it's flowing down as well. But yeah, there is a lot of work on that one. Yeah. And she weighs a lot, but when she's on, it just molds. Well, as they all do with the luxe gowns.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That the weight of your body actually carries the gown, and the weight of your kind of cascades down and silhouettes the body.
Yes.
Clever.
Yeah, because when you pick them up, they weigh a lot, but then when you put them on, you don't notice.
No, not at all, and they're really comfortable and they feel very secure.
Yes.
So talking about now, shifting gears a little bit about future collections, Karen, what 3 words would you use to describe a future collection you're currently working on?
Well, I actually don't really know, because I'm ready to start designing the next LUXE collection, and I'm ethereal, actually, even though I just fibbed and said I don't know. So ethereal is the first word. So I sort of feel like I want to, when things aren't, I see my life and the business, I'm kind of like, try and go with the flow, literally. That's how I feel it. And you shouldn't ever fight against anything, but you still want to kind of go down the path you want to go, but you've got to go the way the world wants you to go and still direct your path in that. So that's going to be my next collection, is I need all of that in there, even though that wasn't 3 words. What's so you get one word, ethereal.
Ethereal. Well, that's
to get back to you on the other 2.
Okay, sure. You can do that. Ethereal is a really lovely start. Anyway, so and I think that obviously lends perfectly well to your luxe gowns as well. So we're excited to see how ethereal plays out in the next LUXE collection. Exciting. Speaking of,
well, next week is I'm having a holiday, even though I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying here. But I am going to clear my mind, ready for designing. So next week is the big week of fabulousness, hopefully, coming out.
Exciting. Speaking of new collections, we've had a question about how often you launch a new collection.
Well, with the luxe gowns, that's once a year. But we've sort of got 4 main collections, so each collection once a year. So really there's usually 2 and 2. We use the time, we show at market overseas. So normally I should have gone to London now and New York. So March, April is when we do 2 of the collections, and then October is when we do the other 2. So we've sort of got the Luxe, we've got the Wild Hearts, we've got Bespoke, and we've got the Wild Hearts Curve. However, we are going to launch a new collection called Elope, but we're just sort of waiting to see what's happening with the world at the moment, which is actually, if I was designing a collection now for this time, that's exactly what we're doing. So that's ready and waiting sort of when we come out the other side. And that's more sort of casual look. But so really each collection once a year, but we divide it between the two months, and then we show at market overseas and in Australia, and then they go into the stores usually around the same time we start to show them generally as well.
Okay, great. So hopefully everyone's been taking note of that at home if they're shopping for beautiful new Karen Willis Holmes designs. I guess that also gives you and your design team, Karen, a little bit of breathing space. I mean, four collections is still a lot every year, but I guess that allows you to also, I guess, hit the market at the right time for brides when they're shopping for their gowns, but also a bit of breathing space around the collections as well, and to start that inspiration process.
Yeah, and sometimes it will be like we've just we launched a new bespoke collection, sort of, even though officially we put that in our stores sort of like at the end of, at the beginning of this year.
Yes.
And so obviously it hasn't been there long, and then everything's been closed, so that's just been starting to peek through. But I haven't done that much of bespoke gowns for the last few years because it didn't feel the right thing and it wasn't needed. And like we said earlier, it was sort of like a less formal kind of feel. But then it just felt right to do a bit more structured, a little bit more relatively traditional. I mean, they're definitely not traditional as traditional goes. But I just felt that vibe was coming back. So I did more bespoke gowns than normal. So it really varies as well what actually we do produce. And if I've got it in my head, I like making it. So then I'll end up thinking, okay, we're just going to do 6 gowns in this area, and then end up with 12 because we love them all and we couldn't make up our mind. And that's one of the benefits of having our own stores as well. So I can play around and I can experiment and put that in the store. And does anyone look at it? Do people even want to try it on? It's like they do, but they're not ready for it yet. Or it's like, yeah, everyone loves this kind of look. It's like, oh yeah, we've been looking for it. So I'm lucky I get a test market in my stores.
Yeah, that's right. It's great to have that feedback while you're still, I guess, relatively early in the design phase, and have real brides feedback, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, this is a hard question. It'd be like choosing your favorite child, but do you have any favorite gowns from your most current, I guess, and iconic collections? Is there maybe one or two that have always stayed with you, Karen, that you, every time you see her, you fall in love with it just a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I love part of my bespoke collections. I love Audrey. It's classic. It's got sort of like the bust cups. It's got a corset. I love spotty tulle. I don't know why. I just love spot tulle. So she's got spot tulle, and because she's got the sort of like the sheer nudie shades underneath, that shows up a little bit. And I like I like to do lots of different versions of things. So that's very me. And then also we've done another gown called Scarlet, who's got, so I've always loved ribbon and playing around with ribbon, getting an interest from it. So we've done that, and it's all kind of interwoven on the bodice. So and we've got one of the girls in the workroom, he's great at draping. So we've used all her skills immensely, and she's done that on. So yeah, these ones, and there's lots of soft tulle as well. So they are really pretty feminine, a bit of a 1950s vibe, but still very current, very modern.
Yeah, they're both incredible gowns, and their weaving work on Scarlet is so intricate, and it's so beautiful, the pattern that the ribbon kind of creates, the sheen on the ribbon and the cross weaving. It's really cool. I love it. It's a little bit bondage feeling, really, in a very beautiful kind of wedding gown way. It does have that kind of agent provocateur kind of feel to it as well. Yeah. I love it. What was our next question? Oh, actually, you mentioned Audrey, who is made in that beautiful nude spotty tulle. Speaking of colour, do you think you'll ever add any coloured gowns into your future collections, Karen? Or have you already experimented with colour?
I do love colour, and with couture gowns over the years, I've actually have made quite a few coloured gowns. I mean, when actually my sister got married, she is very colourful, completely opposite to me. I'm a nude sort of girl.
Right.
She had a bright orange suit, which I made for my sister. So you could not get more colourful. And
amazing.
And years ago, I made a wedding gown in, it was red but shot with black fabric. And I mean, this was a long time ago, and I loved it. And it was actually it was very popular at the time. But still, generally, most people do want ivory. So, we do predominantly, our gowns are in ivory. So we've got a few sort of latte and nude ones, but no is at the moment, no. They sort of, if people generally want a coloured wedding gown, they don't buy them from a wedding gown store.
Sure. Yes, I agree. It's more of a ready-to-wear kind of look, isn't it? And you have to be very confident to wear colour, and really, really passionate about it too, I guess. It's a big decision to have an orange suit. I love that. And speaking of styling, Karen, is there a dress or a particular look you would recommend for a bride with a fuller bust? Thinking about silhouettes now.
I mean, actually, the luxe gowns are possibly again, it depends what size bust you do have, but the luxe gowns, or some of the luxe gowns, are the most flexible in fit. So anything that doesn't have a waist seam in the luxe gowns and the V-necks, the gowns are so flexible, they really mould over your bust, and you can wear a good sort of like, usually a sensible bra underneath, like a t-shirt bra, so it's really smooth, works, gives you good support, but then the whole dress just moulds over your body shape. So they're my first go-to. However, some of the, I call them a U-neck, so it's like a V-neck, but then it's just got this sort of like a little flatbed, and they're actually quite low. But just when we were trying and we sort of first did that, we got one of the girls in the office who had a double D bust. I just wanted her to put it on so I could see what it would look like. She put it on, and we were all expecting it to look far too booby and like not right. But then she came out and we're all like, oh, that looks really good. So that was unexpected, because it varies. It's just putting something on and trying it, really. Just one of the things, just make sure, a lot of my dresses and other people's dresses, they might have a seam underneath the bust. Sorry, actually, you can't see. I always point on my body where the seam line.
Yeah, I do it too. Yeah.
When you have got a bigger bust, that tends to sit up over your bust. So be aware when you're trying dresses on, that if there is a seam there, where it's actually sitting on your body, because you might not notice when you're buying the dress that's sitting in a higher position, so it looks like it's odd. Sometimes that is in the wrong spot but looks fine, but it's just something to be aware of. So generally, you just got to be careful where the seams sit. So that's why the beaded gowns are great. But it's also just the bra cup bodices. We go to our cups are kind of like a generous C. Mm-hmm. So if you're bigger than that, normally they don't work. It just looks like too booby, and it doesn't. We can sort of like add some little modesty panels sometimes as well, that makes it a bit better, but the cup shape really needs to fit properly. So if you're a bigger bust, don't even go there, unless you
cup. Yeah,
especially so that's but the bias V-necks are my first go-to choices for a bigger bust.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you, Karen. It's interesting actually, because we've got Rhiannon from the LUXE collection, which we love. And she looks beautiful on a fuller bust. It's quite transformative, really, that beautiful V-neck. And like you said, without the waist seam, it just, the shape is just beautiful on.
And that's the perfect example. She fits, she's molded, she doesn't have so the shape just fits over whatever size you are. Actually, one thing with a bigger bust, just be careful that if you do put modesty panels in, or if it's a different gown from a different designer, that they're not actually too high, because if you're sort of trying to be too modest, it makes your bust look a lot bigger. So you tend to get more of a mono boob look if you're kind of like really making the neckline high with some of the dresses. So it's just being aware of how covered up you are with that or not. But it's obviously the stylist with you and in our stores, you just then careful how to, you obviously recommend and have a look. But it's more the bride yourself having a look in the mirror. Does that genuinely look good? Do I feel comfortable? And then asking whoever you're with or your stylist.
Yeah. And you raised a really good point there. It's about how comfortable you feel in it as well when it's on.
If it's too low for you, whether it literally, I mean, I know lots of times we'll be in the store looking and someone feels uncomfortable, you keep putting your hands over your chest or trying to cover yourself up. Everyone else will think, no, that you look great. That's not showing too much. But if you don't feel comfortable, you're not wearing, you're not happy. So have a look for a different style.
That's right. And there's so many beautiful ones. So just work out what you feel comfortable in, I think is key there. Speaking still on the LUXE gowns, do you have any recommendations to bustle the Rhiannon gown? For the reception, Karen?
I mean, yes. So all of with the trains sort of really, and we can send details. So if anyone does particularly want to know, we've actually got like paperwork that we can send to show your dressmaker how to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit hard to describe, but basically there's a centre back seam, sort of like the whole way down the middle of the back. And you can either do on the outside of the dress 2 points and do like we call them grubs. They're like a little hand thread, but you don't really see them. So that then you've got 2 grubs in 2 different positions, and then you tie those together with a little ribbon that's separate. Then that pulls up, it makes it look in a really beautiful godette, and it sort of like complements the shape and looks like a beautiful design rather than you just cord it up so you can move around. So that kind of works with the dress. So that's probably my favourite way to do it. You can also put ribbons inside the dress and tie them up that way, and again that kind of like works the opposite way, but the outside way is my favourite, because then you've made a nice godette.
Yeah, beautiful. I know it's a little bit hard to show without a dress, but in store we kind of show how the godette works once you have the bustle done on the outside and then on the reverse. And thankfully we have an amazing dressmaker here in Canberra that does all of the bustles for our brides. So don't worry, your Rhiannon gown will be bustled and looking beautiful. And I think it's also nice, actually, to your point, Karen, that it, I guess it changes the look of the dress a little bit as well. It's almost, changing the style a little bit for the evening, which is nice to have that train bustled up. And it's a nice.
That's a little bit of it. When you move around, it kind of flicks out and twirls around a bit.
Yeah, beautiful. So now we're speaking about accessories, really. Do you have any favorite accessories or kind of go-to brands, Karen, that you love, recommend? I guess because each of your collections are quite different. You might have quite different recommendations for each, but any go-to accessories that you love?
Really, I mean, we've got quite a few different brands that we work with and that we do love, and but I kind of think I'm talking to the earring queen, so like
preaching to the choir.
I like an earring. I think looks good with a lot of the gowns, and especially that's sort of like a fashionable look at the moment. I'm generally not really a necklace person, so I'm an earring and bracelet, but very minimal. to me at 2, but still, having said that, a big statement earring can go. So I actually think whatever your personal style is, try that with your wedding gown, because then to me this is your ultimate you. So you need to kind of really go for it. Obviously, remember, I mean, I've got quite big earrings on for me at the moment, but then on my wedding day I did wear quite small ones. But I think just when you've purchased your gown, then take things in and have a look and literally try them on. Does that work or does that not? And whether it wants to be a feature. Obviously, if you've got quite a plain gown, a super feature earring would look stunning with that.
Incredible.
Or as well, if you want to kind of like put something into your hair too. Generally, at the moment, I like things if you've got it in your hair that if it's more at the back or the side, so it's looking quite simple from the front, but then you have got a sort of like feature there.
Feature at the back. Speaking of hairstyles, actually, Karen, have you seen anything lately that you really love, or kind of slick back looks or beautiful kind of ponytails? Any hairstyles that you're into at the moment for bridal?
I like a kind of messy up is probably one of my favourites, or if your hair's down but still caught back a little bit.
Yeah.
I just feel that way. For a start, if you've got something to attach your veil into, or if you are having a hairpiece. Also, if you're outside, and mainly because I suppose we do a lot of weddings that are outside, your hair's going to stay into position if it's caught up a little bit as well. But I suppose just fairly classic. I do like a bit of a soft updo is my go-to, very personal favourite. But again, it's if you never wear your hair up, to me that's not the first day to do it. So I think do something that you feel fabulous with, but don't do a version of yourself rather than something completely different and not your style.
Which is fabulous advice, because we always say when looking for your dress or your accessories, or even, the complete wedding day look, that you're after that very best version of yourself, or an elevated version of yourself. Yeah.
Actually, one thing as well, probably just check with your fiance. He might have. I know I was talking to someone the other day, and she said her husband she had to tie her hair up, and he didn't like her hair up. And
interesting.
So it's sort of like, and I've actually over the years I've heard that a few times. So definitely, if he's got a favourite way that you wear your hair, I kind of think it's nice to consider, as long as you actually like that way as well.
Yeah,
good to consider, because you want to look beautiful walking down the aisle, and when he's looking at you or she's looking at you, that you look like I don't know. You don't want him to go, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Why should the hair up? I like the hair up.
Oh, she's got long hair and she's chopped it off into a bob. What happened there? Which always scares me when I hear people saying they're going to cut their hair off for the wedding, or grow it really long or something. Interesting. I think sticking to that very best version of yourself and checking in with the fiance for feedback as well is great advice with hairstyling. So what have we got next? Actually, this is a really great question, and I was on your website the other day, Karen, and you've got some awesome information about it. But are there any kind of tips you could give to brides at the moment who may have already received their gowns, but due to coronavirus regulations have had to postpone? Are there any tips you can give on caring for your gown over a longer period of time prior to the wedding?
I mean, mostly it depends what time frame we're actually talking about, which of course a lot of people wouldn't actually know how long it's going to be at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of wedding gown bags for travel are actually plastic, and which our gown bags are, but that's not good for long-term storage, because it actually the gowns can't breathe in there. So they need to be out of the bags if you're anywhere longer than a couple of months, and they really need to go into a fabric bag. I don't know where to recommend to get those, or covered up another way, or put them somewhere dark. Like, you don't want daylight or sunlight on them. It needs to be somewhere dry. You're somewhere that's very humid or damp coming into the winter. Make sure that, get those kind of like little damp aid things where you're going to store it if you need to, but just be aware of that. don't squish it anywhere as well. That's a good technical term.
Yeah.
So kind of like try it. And I suppose it depends how, really generally they're better hung than folded up. Normally after your wedding, they're folded and stored, like after they've been to the dry cleaner, but you don't want to sort of like get crease lines on it as well. But that is going to depend on your gown to which way. But hung up somewhere, try, if you have got a spare room, obviously you don't want it to be in the way all of the time as well. But it might be maybe your bridal store could store it for you, but I think you're better to have it as you're kind of like doing very precious with it. But in the dark, out of the way, where you're not looking at it all the time as well, because you're like, oh, there it is.
Yes.
Like, keep on
Yes.
with it, try it.
Or if you've got a lovely friend or a relative that wants to store it hanging at their house, I think can work.
Well, that actually is handy if you've got someone that can store it for you.
Yes.
And also make sure as well, just like if you've got pets, that it's not in their way either.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I don't have any pets, so I haven't thought of that, but I'll definitely add that to the list. We're going to do a blog post in the next couple of weeks about caring for your gown, so that's good advice. We'll have to add that in particular. Speaking of, back to your gowns actually, Karen, we notice you've got some beautiful limited edition styles that are available in your Sydney and Melbourne boutiques. And we've had a question about the Annie gown, which is pretty magical. And we had a bride wondering what the price of Annie is.
That is $7,990.
And there's so much work in that.
Yes, yeah. It's got a sort of like a corset bodice, and then we've had that embroidered, and it's got sort of like lots of lines all crossing over, but sort of a bit hand-drawn lines. So generally, I kind of like visually like to bring things in, so that's sort of like starting wider and then coming into the waist, and it's just hand embroidered with little delicate beading on top as well, so it's just got a soft twinkle, and then that flows into, it's got like a 9-panel skirt in organza, so it's quite fitted around the waist and the hips, and then just flows into the soft skirt, and there's a little bit of tulle under there just to give it sort of like a soft, delicate layered look. But the main part of it is organza and embroidered.
Yeah, wow. And so much hand detailing on that. And organza is also like a really beautiful fabric. And I've noticed that there's I don't think there's many gowns that you offer the organza. Obviously, it's quite a luxury fabric as well for more bespoke and limited edition gowns, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, you're right. At the moment, we don't. I mean, over the years, it's a fabric I love, but we've only got a couple at the moment. I think most of the other pieces generally I've been using tulle, sort of like we were talking earlier with Audrey and Scarlett. They've got kind of light layers of tulle. Organza is a little bit more opaque, so I suppose it's a bit of a halfway between the tulle and then a solid fabric, but you still get the sheer sort of like and the light sort of like going through.
Yeah, beautiful. And if our brides wanted to try on Annie, so they need to head to your Sydney and Melbourne boutiques, is that right, Karen?
Yeah.
Great. All right. That will be very exciting. So we've just got a few little questions before we dive into some kind of more life-based questions as well, Karen. And I guess we've already touched on this previously, particularly when it comes to your Elope collection that's coming out soonish. Do you think that there'll be more interest in, say, bridal separates, kind of during the regulations around smaller size celebrations, and maybe even coming out the other side of isolation and lockdown? Do you think we'll see a bit of a return or a bit of a trend around separates that can maybe be mixed and matched and different looks achieved for maybe 2 celebrations rather than 1?
Yeah, I do, yes. And actually that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. And it might be that quite a few girls are getting married with a small, like elopement style wedding, or just however many were allowed. I think it's still 5 people that were allowed at the moment, so it depends when you actually get married, but then possibly have a bigger party later on when we're all allowed to sort of like to get back together. So I imagine there's going to be lots of that. So then you've got sort of like a relatively more casual version to start with, and then the more grander version for the big party. But having said that, you can still do a whopper fabulous everything and just two of you there as well. So
yeah.
I separates I do like. You can mix and match and make it work for your sort of you too. But yeah, you've got the benefit of really then changing the look quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw a few different separate options in your latest Wild Hearts collection, actually, Karen. There are a few top and skirt combinations, which were pretty beautiful.
Yeah. I just wanted to, again, it was a little bit more of a casual look, definitely suits a warm destination style wedding, and a midriff, but not too much. It's kind of like, obviously it depends how tall you are and how long your body is, but essentially like a couple of centimetres, an inch between the skirt and the bodice. So there's just a hint of midriff there. But also we've just done, I mean, we call it a poncho. It's not really a poncho, but like in beautiful Georgette that sits over the top. But that looks great. So when you're walking down the aisle, you're a little bit more covered up, but still sheer. So that we did that to kind of sit over any of the midriff bits if you're just trying to be a bit more, I mean, demure is the wrong word, but a little bit more covered up for walking down the aisle. Then you take that off and then you've got your party, you've got the show off those fabulous abs that you've been working on.
Yeah, great. Well, it's always good to have options. No one ever complains about beautiful options. I love the sound of that poncho though. We'll have to have a look at that one. Heading back to obviously Corona at the moment, do you think the search for brides has been affected in any way? Particularly thinking of Karen Willis Holmes, your stores are temporarily closed at the moment. How have your team been able to help brides on their search at present, keep their journey alive?
With all the store managers are still working, so sort of like online and via phone, we're all still there. We have been seeing occasionally if someone's desperate to come in, and she has already been in, we're sort of like doing a few special appointments, but not many. I kind of feel most people are happy to wait as well. I know myself, I don't feel like shopping at the moment. It's nice to look at things, but it's a waiting game to see where we're going to actually be and what's going to happen out of the other side. So I think most people are happy just to window shop, but not even shop. Shopping is to me, it's the wrong word. It's just having a look at lots of things you like. I think that people are doing that. And just social media. I mean, we've just started a TikTok account. So we're kind of like playing around with fun things. So that seems more like a playful way to do things. And so that people are looking by accident at what's happening from that point of view. So I suppose just kind of like keeping involved from that way and just being there, but rather than actually shopping or thinking about trying things on. I mean, obviously our website, we've got kind of like we've got an e-boutique as well. We haven't got all the pieces on there, but that we did that so it helps window shopping. So you can kind of have a look at the front, the side, the back. You can kind of get an idea for prices. And then also, I mean, Pinterest is good. Shopping around and kind of like doing some research. So it's more, and we're around then to answer questions when you've kind of like done any bits of that. But that's actually, at the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks, we had an awful lot of like people asking questions and calling. It's just quieted off a little bit now with less questions, and I think we're all just kind of waiting to see what's happening.
Patiently waiting. And I think you're right at the moment. I mean, I'm not into shopping either. I'm more about finding those visual escapes, I guess. Which is what you're offering through socials and things, and TikTok as well. My goodness, I'm just kind of, getting my head around our Q&A sessions. I have been browsing your Karen Willis Holmes TikTok account, and I'm like, wow, okay, that'll be the next big thing to experiment with. And I think you're right. It's an outlet for fun, which we all need right now. Yeah,
very much so.
And curate those wish lists for later.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking of curating wish lists for later, Karen, where would you travel to after all the restrictions have been abolished? What's on your list? What would be the first place?
Well, usually I travel for work. And so I kind of like I said earlier, I kind of go away twice a year. So I go to London and New York in sort of March, April, and then New York in October. And then normally I do some personal time on the end of one of those. So my March, April, I normally have, I go away for a few days between the two markets. So it depends when it happens. So so Mediterranean countries are my favorite sort of like literally holiday feel. But then I love big cities. So I go to London and New York for work, but I kind of love immersing myself in those. So I'm not sure, either New York or London, and the Mediterranean.
I think particularly you'd probably be just kind of dying to get to a big metropolitan city after this time, and like you said, immerse yourself in a big city and, you know, culture and food and people. And I think we're all looking forward to hugging each other as well.
Yeah, and going somewhere different than the supermarket as our one weekly outing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually been nice to do these Q&As weekly because, you know, I've put some makeup on, I've put my earrings on and come in and sat down with everyone. So it's been nice to have that weekly excuse to put something nice on and leave the house, change the scenery. On more personal note, Karen, what is your all-time favorite fragrance, or what are you wearing at the moment?
Jo Malone fragrances. I love all of. I've got lots of them. So I kind of like do a couple of little squirts of any of those.
Chop and
change. So anything Jo Malone and playing around. I love them as well. It's my husband. We both share. It doesn't matter which one. There's kind of very sort of like work for him and her. And so Jo Malone is actually, I found some of my other perfumes and I was like, I better use these. And then I was like, oh no, they're not right. I need Jo Malone.
You kind of know, don't you? You stick to something that works. And what is your favourite flower, Karen?
Like a hand-picked flower. So if I can, like something out of the garden is and here we've got a garden with lots of nice flowers in. So something that you picked, I like, whether kind of like big, obviously it depends what time of year. I mean, having said that, who can go past a rose, like an old-fashioned, who can go past an old-fashioned rose that smells like a rose as well? Yeah. They're hard to find, but anything pretty and flowery, which is no answer again. But
well, amazing to have a garden, to be able to go out and you kind of explore what's in season. And I think seasonal flowers too, just kind of bringing in what's in season into the home or for your wedding bouquets and things like that, because they're always the most beautiful and the most fragrant. I agree. And that's definitely something. I kind of like hedgerowy flowers as well. I love. Yeah.
Not that beautiful. I mean, I'm English originally, so there's a lot of hedgerow flowers in England.
I was going to say. That lends itself to your English heritage and beautiful English gardens. Yeah. And on the music front, Karen, is there a Spotify playlist you have on rotation at the moment, or do you have a soundtrack to life or favourite song?
I actually probably Buddha Bar is what I listen to pretty much all the time. I'm generally pretty easy on music, but I just like to find a station I like and then just put that on and then keep that going. So Buddha Bar's been my go-to. It's kind of relaxing and beautiful and delicate in the background.
Yeah, perfect. I haven't listened to that in ages. I used to listen to it all the time, 10, 11 years ago. And my husband, also being from the UK as well, he used to listen to that a lot. Okay, that's good inspiration. I think I might have to pull out Buddha this afternoon while doing some work. And are you reading a book or a podcast or listening to a podcast at the moment, Karen, that you're really enjoying you could share?
I'm actually listening to quite a lot of them. Probably Business of Fashion is my absolute go-to, because that's generally mainstream fashion, but I just love all their articles. They're very interesting. So that's my main, sorry, lots of calls.
Lots of questions for you.
Yeah. So that's my probably go-to one. And then books, I'm trying to use my time wisely as well. So it's, actually I'm reading Ray Dalio. I've forgotten what his book is. Principles. That's very interesting. Okay. And then also I'm sort of reading a body language book as well, and that's kind of, I love that. Plus I've got my trashy book going at the same time. So
wow.
three books. Well, and I'm normally kind of like more into my trashy book, but I'm kind of like, okay, yeah. I need to focus and I want to read these kind of like inspirational books. So I'm reading those as well.
Yeah, I think now's the right time, particularly if we have a little bit more downtime on our hands. I've definitely taken up my reading again. I haven't been into my reading as much since I was in college, really, and I used to read every day on the train. So it's actually been nice, and I've kind of carved out, an hour or so a day to sit in my favorite chair at home now and have a cup of tea and read. Yeah, it's nice. I hope that I can take that back. Once this time passes, I can build in that time again. Is there anything that you're doing now, Karen, or self kind of care routines, anything you're kind of reflecting on or doing differently that you want to take into, the future beyond these times?
Yeah, I'm fairly probably good anyway with, I make sure I go for at least an hour walk every morning. I'm doing and I've started in January, but doing the Kayla sort of exercise thing. So I'm kind of being good doing that.
That's good.
I think the biggest thing, probably trying to meditate. I'm really bad at that, and I know what a difference that does make. So, and being aware of being somewhere. So I do find, and I'm sure lots of us, I'll be kind of walking somewhere or doing something. I'll be in my little zone, and I've walked past all these beautiful trees, or like I was saying earlier, and I didn't even see them, or I tripped over something practically, and because I was in my thing. So I'm trying to look out as well and be aware of the world.
And that's so great. I think just being more mindful, I think we're all kind of taking a leaf out of that book at the moment, particularly, I guess, being at home too, kind of looking out the window and taking a minute to actually realize, there's beautiful trees, or I'm living in this kind of, big city, and there's incredible buildings surrounding me. So I think we'll all take that through with us. It's nice.
Yeah, we need to be a little bit more not self-aware, aware of the environment as well. Be mindful of everything. I think.
More aware.
Yes.
Well, Karen, that comes to the end of our long list of questions for you this morning. Thank you again. I'm definitely feeling very inspired. I'm sure all of our followers and our beautiful brides really appreciate all of your insight and providing us with inspiration at the moment to kind of keep those beautiful wedding journeys alive. Did you have any questions for us, Karen? I guess I should close on. We've been asking them all.
Not really. I suppose actually just to say thank you for having us in your store as well.
Absolute pleasure.
Today, but no, I don't have any questions, but it is great to work with a store that really, like you said earlier, embraces kind of Australian designers, and you've got a unique sort of curation as well, which I admire and I think looks beautiful. So it's nice to be sort of a part of Mrs. Fray. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. It's and like we tell a lot of our brides, you've been a huge supporter of us from the very beginning, and they're all ecstatic that they have Karen Willis Holmes here in Canberra. So thank you for being a part of it. Well, we better let you get on and enjoy the rest of your Friday and prepare for design time. Take that little holiday break up in beautiful Byron. It's always great to see you, Karen. Thank you again for your time. Take care. And we'll see you maybe in Sydney, New York, or London one day in the future. Thanks, Karen. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.